mysterious and spooky. They're all together ooky, the Addams Family.
Greetings from Castle Goring, from Nikki, Aurora, and from me. Today I am the bearer of very good news, and I am not referring to the good news that everybody knows about Catherine, which I will get to in a while, but I am the bearer of very good news about the king. Now, I'm going to be very careful what I say, because this is a morsel that has dropped like manna from heaven into my lap. And I do not want to violate his privacy. I do not want to give away any information that he or anybody close to him would regard as invasive. I'm not going to be particular about what I have been told. I'm certainly not going to say by whom. But what I will say is that I have run it through medical channels, and I have really good news. You know, there have been implications that the king doesn't have long to live, and that he could be looking at 2, maximum 3 years. Not so. Not so. I'm not going to say how I know it or what I particularly know, beyond saying that the treatment he has been receiving is, according to the medical experts that I have run things by, well, in fact, one person said to me that he would be very surprised if he doesn't have rather longer than that, no matter what happens in terms of whether he is cured or managed. So nowadays, evidently, there are superb treatments, and I'm not going to say what I was told they are, because that would begin to indicate and might violate the king's privacy. But there are treatments which are very exacting and precise and target matters in a very effective way, such as they never used to do, and that you can now live with cancer even if you're not cured, especially when you're older, for a considerable length of time, certainly longer than 2 or 3 years. So I thought I'd pass on that good news to you, which I intended to pass on not necessarily today, but I was undecided as to when I was going to pass it on. But since Catherine's good news has come today, I think let's celebrate. Well, Catherine's good news came yesterday, so we're celebrating. Kristen George says, "Dear Lady C, I would love your opinion on the wonderful news that Princess Catherine is finished with her chemotherapy treatments. When I saw the video, I felt a bit sad or frustrated, not sure the correct word that I felt, but it felt so overproduced, and I hoped this wasn't a rebound from all the horrible comments online that the Waleses feel they must let the public into their private lives. It's a beautifully done video, but there was something about it that made me uncomfortable. Felt a bit over the top, and at the same time, extreme privilege is a part of any illness. Many cannot stop working, have a space to frolic in the majestic woods, have supportive family or husband. Cancer and any illness is such a deeply personal experience, and no two people look at it the same. I am of the firm opinion, however, Catherine works through this life-altering experience as she should. I just hope she didn't feel pressured to keep up with the glossy Instagram Hollywood demands. So please, no one take this as criticizing the Waleses or Catherine. I was just very curious on Lady C's take and insight. The timing helped take the sting out of 2 years since Queen Elizabeth II's passing. What bookends of life. True. What bookends of life indeed. I know what you mean. I saw the video. I thought it was beautifully done, very poignantly, very artistically. Now, I need to point out, Catherine studied history of art. Catherine loves art. Catherine loves photography. Catherine has an artist's eye. Catherine is better than the ordinary amateur photographer, even if she went a little bit overboard with the photoshopping for the photograph that got such criticism. But you notice when Meghan and Harry posted a photograph in Colombia with Meghan having 3 hands, nobody said a word. And I don't recall that anybody took down any of those photographs. And I don't recall that any of the news agencies criticized her and said, oh, we're not going to run them. No, because it's fake. Well, maybe Catherine does have 3 hands. Each one is called 6. It's possible. But, you know, the message was very humble and humbling. And she's also trying to build bridges with other people who have cancer. You do not face your mortality without being rocked to your core. And to have it done in your early 40s with 3 young children is a shattering experience for anyone. I think she has combined her artistic side. I have no doubt that she was the creator of the whole thing, and she wanted to convey certain messages, which she did. The fact that she did them so well that there is the patina of professionalism about it is reflective not only of her background photographically and artistically, but her personality, because she is a bit of a perfectionist. I might actually rephrase it and say she is exacting and is, as opposed to a perfectionist, is an idealist and is inclined to exactitude. And there's another aspect to this. Remember, Catherine was genuinely abused by the mainstream media for several years. So who can blame her for wanting to keep the reins in her hands, and instead of getting a professional in and saying, okay, one of you members of the Rota, who is going to be a Rota photographer, let's have you do it. And remember, She and William did that with Tom Bradby for their engagement interview. They gave an exclusive to Tom Bradby. Well, look at how that turned out. Tom Bradby walked with his pocket and his ambition directly into Harry's camp and into the choice position with ITV, which, as we know, is very in favour of Harry and Meghan. Don't say I mentioned Dame Caroline McCall. No, don't. That would be mean of you. So, she has the ability, and she's done it. And she's done it beautifully, the way she does everything else. And I understand what you're saying, because it's so beautifully done, but it's also conveying the message that they are a happy family, they are a loving family, that they all love each other, they all get along with each other, they are happy to expose their innermost feelings in terms of their love for each other and share them with the world. All things, of course, that other couples would not do. Now, it has to be said, I'm sufficiently reserved that I wouldn't do something like that. True. But they did. And it's not the first time that they have done things. Remember at the coronation, they did the behind the scenes thing as well. So I hope that sort of puts to rest any reservations you have, because I get where you're coming from with the reservations. It's so well done, it's almost slick. But it's not slick because it's sincere. Slick would be insincere. But it also shows sometimes it's better not to be so good. Otherwise, you get accused of being too almost artificial. So I hope that answers the question. Sarah Kernigan says, "Good morning, Lady C." Good morning. Well, good afternoon, sorry. It's not morning. Here. I recall that some time ago you mentioned that Harry could only visit the UK for a certain number of days at a time, because if he spent too much time back in the UK, it had tax implications for both him and the Scrounge of Montecito. Some of these names, I love you. If he did manage to worm his way back to the UK, which I hope doesn't happen, do you think he is trying to shore up his resources now by sucking up to Charles and William so that he can hit them up to pay his tax bill if he does end up pulling the prodigal son card? I don't think it's going to happen. Sorry. Let me consider the question before answering it. He can only visit the United Kingdom for a certain number of days per annum. After a certain time, it increases, and I think he's most likely reaching the time where it does increase, and it's ultimately going to increase to, I think it's 90 days per annum, that he will be able to come here without facing HMRC, which is the UK tax man. Of course, he has very sophisticated tax advice, and Meghan has very sophisticated tax advice. She always has had very sophisticated advice. Meghan's very clever where money's concerned. Not clever enough about the means that she has deployed as opposed to employed to make the money. But, she's a mover and a shaker, so they have to have 27,000 Delaware companies, blah-de-blah-de-blah. So he's not going to come back here and ruin things for himself in terms of tax. And his father and his brother are certainly not going to be settling his tax bills. He would have to settle them himself. That is what I am assured of by people who are in the know. Charles complained to the late Queen that Harry was treating him as if he were a bank. And that was when things were better between them than they are now. Of course he's not going to be paying anything. So I also think a lot of these stories are generated by the Montecitans so that speculation will reign supreme. K. Marham says, "Dear Lady C, I wonder what you think of my theory regarding the changing and conflicting stories about Operation Bring Harry In From the Cold. Based on his lack of affection towards his American fripiera, Horchard." I love it. "And his looking bored and irritated by her recently, I believe Harry really does want to find a way back to better relations with his family and the royal institution. That said, he needs to tread very carefully around his first wife." I love it. "As he now sees some unpleasant and toxic qualities in her. I think he is trying to line up a taxi before he gets off the bus." I love it. Sorry. Oh dear. Sorry. So, I believe he has made it known via one vehicle that he wants to reconnect with his home and family. And I also believe he has denied it through different PR means to cover his tracks with the untrademarked purveyor of dog biscuits and jam. And I think she ought to go in for pooper scoopers as well, don't you? She knows all about poo, and therefore she should know about the antidote to poo, pooper scoopers. Pooper scoopers by Royal Oik. Anyway, I think he is signalling a clear desire to separate, but looking for support before he can. He is simultaneously letting her believe that he wants to stay with her in much the same way that Katie Holmes lined up a safe alternative before suddenly bolting from Tom Cruise once her arrangements were made. Do you believe that Harry is playing it the same way? Much love." Oh, well, may I answer the question like this? I keep belief out of things. I am not one for speculation unless it's absolutely necessary. I'm certainly not one for prediction. And beliefs are fatal to good reportage. As I said to my little sister the other day, in terms of politics. Keep your beliefs to yourself and don't even consider them when considering who you're going to cast your vote for. Make sure that you do not confuse religion and politics. Well, I'm going to say here, belief has nothing whatsoever to do with any discernment I would have as to what Harry might do, and I would prefer not to speculate. However, having said all of that, because there are times when you need to qualify something, your analysis is actually not far out of left field, if that's the correct expression. Harry never used to be manipulative and duplicitous. He used to be volatile and immediate and really very hard to handle. But he was never devious and manipulative. But, you know, when you live with the mistress of manipulation and the Duchess of duplicity, you learn a trick or two. And he could well have learned a trick or two. The marriage is, I am told, volatile. Her relationships always evidently follow the same trajectory, with her throwing scenes, blaming men for letting her down, blah, blah, blah. You have failed me, and I wanted your protection. I'm such a sweet and innocent little flower, one tear left I. You have failed me. You have failed me. Oh, yes. Take back your wedding rings. In fact, I'm not even going to say it. I'm just going to post them to you. Etc., etc. And he could have one or two friends who are advising him. Also, he has a therapist. His therapist could be helping him. If that is something that he is doing and he wishes to make the break, good luck to him. I can tell you, as somebody who had a very troubled marriage and was initially very committed to making my marriage work, nobody who genuinely enters marriage for proper reasons, and I think Harry did enter that marriage for love and hoped he was going to get love. And you don't enter a marriage with a pure heart and leave just like that. It takes a lot of push and pull before you actually decide, I've got to go, and I'm going to go. And that is if you have character and if you have strength to do it. Not everybody does. Will he? Won't he? I am not a gambling woman and I'm not betting. But what I would say is the scenario that you have described is not so far-fetched as to be incredible. It is rather credible. Peggy Kelly says, and may I at this point interject and say, according to certain people, both Harry and Meghan are obsessed with looking at everything that's said about them. Gosh, isn't it fun to throw the cat amongst the pigeons? Peggy Kelly says, It was reported that Harry showed up unexpectedly at Lord Fellowes's memorial. Given Harry's veiled threats against the Wales family, what will be done to ensure that Harry's secret trips to Britain do not continue? Harry is allowed to come and go as he pleases. One of the reasons why he does not have and will not be getting restored, barring some miracle, and a real miracle, he is not going to get his IPP status restored. He's not going to get constant security. He's not going to be able to fly in and fly out with full security. He has to give notice. Then he gets security. And one of the reasons why that works well for the royal family generally, and the British nation particularly, is that if he doesn't give notice, he doesn't get the level of security that he and his bangarang, to use a Jamaican word, demand. That means he doesn't come without giving notice if he wants security. And if he comes without notice, he does without security. It's not cobbled together at the 99th hour. That right there is all the insurance the family needs, that Harry isn't just going to pitch up, or Meghan, just pitch up willy-nilly at the 99th hour, because can you imagine if they had security, what they would be doing? Oh, they'd read that the king was going to be doing something on next week, Tuesday, and Catherine's going to be doing something on Monday evening. So they'd be beetling over on Monday afternoon. They'd have a terrible car chase, we're being chased by the paparazzi, having tipped them off, of course. And they would be a terrible car chase through London, and our lives were in danger. The trauma of it all. Oh, front page news yet again. None of it can happen. So I hope that explains that. I'm going to see if this has a name. No, it doesn't. It's just SG. SG says, can you imagine how the traitor and his sociopathic narcissist would react if the Prince and Princess of Wales were to say that they wanted to help the Montecito couple with their children, in quotation marks, and that they want to make sure that those children, in quotation marks, are all right? Well, very good question. Very good question. If the shoe were on the other foot, the explosion of rage, the explosion of victimhood, the explosion of, you're all taking advantage of us. How dare you? It's awful. You're wicked, evil, racist, dreadful people trying to ruin our lives. Instead of which, they feel fully entitled to violate the peaceful integrity of his brother's family as a right and as a favor to the children. I mean, so what they're basically saying is William and Catherine are not adept parents, and Harry and Meghan are gonna straighten the children out. after they've been ruined by William and Catherine. Well, the one good thing about Catherine's cinematographic qualities is that we were able to see yesterday that William and Catherine's children are desperately in need of attention from Harry and Meghan because they're so happy that, well, if Harry and Meghan intervene, they'll be able to become miserable and victims. And Meghan might even be able to teach Charlotte to cry, want her left eye upon demand. And the other two children, George and Louis, oh, they'll be able to turn them into real victims. So disadvantaged, so taken advantage of. The whole royal system has ruined them because they smile, they're joyous, they're happy. Harry and Meghan will show them how to be miserable and cry and complain and do all the things that people who are in touch with their true feelings have. And on that note, we'll say, let's have a pig or two fly. Here we go. Mr. Biggles is going to fly as well. And while we're at it, let's have our old reliable fly as well. Our genuine first piggy wiggy. You see the insanity of it all? Just beyond belief. Melanie Hunter says, it's becoming more and more obvious that Harry and Mimi are more dangerous than first thought. How delusional can they be that they want to make sure that the children are properly looked after? It's absolutely crazy. Can say that again. Harry wants to take George under his wing and warp his mind. That's certainly an interpretation that one could validly put upon it. But of course, in Harry's twisted way of thinking, and Harry, if you think I'm being unfair and you think I'm defaming you, please feel free to sue me. I will defend the action and I will show in a court of law every single instance that I can come up with regards to your words and comments as to why I have just made the statement I made. So to continue. Harry wants to take George under his wing and warp his mind. It's quite frightening, and no wonder Prince William has had meetings with MI6 or 5, whichever it is. The delusional duo seem to be truly unhinged and maybe more of a threat to the royal family than most think. It's really quite scary. Well, Melanie Hunter, I hear what you're saying. Of course, all families that of, and I need to be careful how I put this for legal reasons, without disagreeing with you, that's right, I need to make it clear that Harry's offer of straightening out George one corkscrew at a time is maybe, most likely, possibly heartfelt, but it shows how totally scrambled his brains are and twisted his thinking is. Obviously, any human being who says some of the things he had said after admitting serious drug usage can be categorized as unhinged as opposed to suffering from a drug-addled mind. So of course, in a situation like that, anybody is going to put protections into place that would assure their peace of mind, let's put it that way. And of course, there are briefing reports done as to the safety of individuals in the public eye, especially royals, and all contingencies are taken into account, including the contingencies, whether they would be happening or not, of left field activities. So I can't be more particular than that without compromising myself and laying myself open to possible trouble. And I don't intend to do that. As I have said before, and I'll continue to say, I am very attached to my money, and I intend to remain attached to it. So I'm not opening any door for eels to slither through and grab my dollar bills. No, sweetie pie, that's not me. You tried it with other people. You're not going to get a penny out of me. So, but it doesn't need to be scary, because it's not possible to leap over the Grand Canyon. And Meghan and Harry are on one side, and William and Catherine are on the other, as are their children. So I think you don't need to have any fear whatsoever. Emma Green says, "Hi, Lady C and gorgeous girls. Woof, woof. Have you heard in the Daily Express? It says Harry and Meghan and the children are going possibly to Althorp for Christmas. What in heaven's name now? God help us. Could that actually be true to punish the royal family? Imagine the column inches. Imagine the walks. All captured by the paparazzi. Jeff Rayner? Sorry. Jeff Rayner? Carl Larson? I just want to tip you off. We're going to be going for a walk. We're going to be going for a walk in the park. And maybe you can go on to Saint Diana's burial place, because I'm going to be communing with her. And I'm going to be having her tell me what a wonderful person I am, and what a fabulous wife I am, fabulous mother. And we'll make sure that the children's faces are covered. After all, got to make sure that we keep them private, at least until they get nose jobs. Meow. Because that's what people are saying. People are saying that the children have to be kept out of view because their features do not accord fully or necessarily with Meghan's exacting Caucasian requirements. I don't for a second believe that, by the way. I think those children have very regular Caucasian features. I think they have 100% Caucasian features, irrespective of their heritage. That's just my actual take on it. Whether that's my information is something I'm not at liberty to say. No. I think you get the point. And on that note, I'll say Thank you very much. I hope you have found this interesting. I think that the news about the King and the Princess of Wales is wonderful, and I hope all else has been elucidatory. And on that note, I'll say Godspeed. Thanks for listening. Please keep the questions and comments coming in and take good care. And if you have truly enjoyed this, would you care to like, share, subscribe, press the notification bell? Godspeed. And as promised, I am going to share today and every other day for the next week or two the blurb about Kids Out, and also show you how, if you would wish to make a contribution, you can. I have been happy to make a contribution. It is a genuine charity. It has a charity number registered with the charity commissioners, and I think it's a wonderful cause. So God bless you. Bye bye.